Coming up on Lawmakers. The House passes Governor Perdue's eminent domain legislation. It's been almost 1 year since the Fulton County courthouse shootings, and an injured deputy files suit against the county and the state. And a resolution fails to pass the Senate that would have expanded the use of educational special local option sales taxes. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Gerald Bryant and Nwandi Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also on Lawmakers, the Senate passes a bill aimed at limiting demonstrations at funerals.
And it's the end of another legislative week. We'll check in with Tom Crawford of CapitolImpact.com. But our lead story tonight, the House passes Governor Perdue's eminent domain legislation. The House today approved Governor Sonny Perdue's Private Property Protection Act, intended to curtail the practice of eminent domain. House Bill 1313 requires that eminent domain proceedings be overseen by elected officials. It defines economic development as increasing the tax base but not providing a public use. It defines public use, clarifies that economic development does not constitute public use, and narrows the definition of blight to apply to individual properties and not to communities. Representative Rich Golick used the example of an elderly longtime resident to illustrate the new protection.
Over the course of time, the neighborhood got a little rough. It was no longer a community, not by a long stretch. Around her, there are properties that are blighted. Let's say she's in a 10-house neighborhood. Let's say 20. 19 of those properties are arguably, and let's just say they are, blighted. Under current standards, that whole area could be redeveloped because of the blight of the area. Under Governor Perdue's Private Property Protection Act, that cannot happen to this lady, and we'll just call her Grandma. It's got to happen on a property-by-property determination basis. If there are 19 truly blighted properties and those properties meet the definition of blight, fine, they can be condemned. But if Grandma's property is smack in the middle of it, but it's not blighted, it's old, there may be some peeling paint, it's probably not as kept up as she wants it to be or as someone else might want it to be, but it's hers and it's not blighted.
House Bill 1313 passed 173-1. The House also adopted House Resolution 1306, a change to the state constitution that would prevent the General Assembly from authorizing eminent domain. Both measures now move to the Senate.
Fulton County Sheriff's Deputy Cynthia Hall will file a personal injury lawsuit against Fulton County and the state of Georgia this week. 1 year ago, it's alleged that Deputy Hall was overpowered and critically injured by jail inmate Brian Nichols, who then allegedly shot and killed 4 people during his escape. Lawmakers David Zelski joins us now with more, including the first public statement from Deputy Hall. David.
Well, Gerald, Deputy Hall's attorney claims that since her attack, she has been suffering from severe brain damage and that Fulton County officials did not react appropriately after the attack. The lawsuit is for $3 million.
Hall's attorney, Brandon Hornsby, spoke on behalf of his client.
My client's had her salary cut by over 50%. Her family now lives barely over the poverty level. My client has no health insurance. Her children have no health insurance. And if my client doesn't file a lawsuit, she will never recover for the pain and suffering she endured on March 11th. And the pain and suffering that she and her family will suffer for the rest of her life.
He then showed a video which he shot of Deputy Hall's first statement on the events of March 11th.
I sustained a frontal brain injury.
What are things that you can no longer do that you used to be able to do before you were hurt?
Go to work.
Do you miss that?
Yeah.
What do you miss about it?
Just doing the job.
Hornsby claims there was a systematic failure of accountability by the Fulton County Sheriff's Department, which he says they deny. Along with Fulton County, the state of Georgia is also being sued.
I asked Hornsby why.
The sheriff is a constitutional officer, and the county has taken the position time and time again that he is a state employee. And because they have taken that position, we are required to put the state on notice.
Senator Joe Carter sponsors legislation that changes how courthouse security is handled. Senate Bill 462 was adopted by the Senate and awaits recommendation by the House Judiciary Non-Civil Committee.
We're going to provide flexibility to local communities by asking the sheriff in each county to develop a comprehensive security plan for the courthouse and annex buildings that will be submitted to the Superior Court judge for their review and approval, and that will begin the process of making sure that our courthouses and annex buildings are secure.
Now, the Fulton County Sheriff's Department referred me to the county attorney's office for a comment on the lawsuit. However, they have not yet responded to our calls. Reporting from the Capitol, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
The House agreed today that individual school systems should have the right to opt out of special local option sales taxes without affecting the county in which they're located. Representative Jan Jones explained to Representative Roger Bruce that the measure would give city schools greater local control.
If, for example, City of Atlanta chose or decided they didn't need the SPLOST, they would opt out for the 5-year period, and then they could come back in after the 5-year SPLOST ended. It is somewhat unlikely that many school systems would ever choose to exercise this, but it is possible, particularly in the case in Atlanta where they're at 8%, higher than anyone else in the state, and it creates a disincentive, to sell goods and services there, and if you don't have a growing system, they might decide to opt out, or with a very Atlanta's somewhat of an exception. Most of the independent school systems are very, very small. They may, in fact, just decide they don't need it for that 5-year period.
Okay. Is the intent of this to give Fulton County schools an opportunity to have a splash without Atlanta going along with it? I mean, is that the whole point of this thing?
Because I think it is very likely that Atlanta would probably want to participate, and just nothing changes for Atlanta in the sense that they can today choose to opt in and they can opt out. But if they opt out, then a Fulton County cannot have the SPLOST.
House Resolution 773 passed 164 to 1. An accompanying piece of legislation, House Bill 893, also passed to unify the state law with that resolution. Both measures must now be considered by the Senate. In a related story, the Senate failed to give 2/3 majority vote to a resolution that would allow counties to vote on using more local options sales tax revenue for school maintenance and operation. The legislation would call for a vote to amend the state constitution to allow counties to use SPLOST dollars to reduce property tax. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman now joins us from the Capitol with more. Jesse.
Well, in one, Senate Resolution 34 is sponsored by Senator Casey Cagle. He says the resolution could allow counties to roll back property taxes. Of course, Cagle is running for lieutenant governor, and some Democrats allege the resolution was a campaign move.
The state obviously has its role to play, but in many local jurisdictions, communities will determine those services, those supplements, those things in which they feel are a higher priority, and they want to provide funds for it.
We should not use our position as legislators to make campaign promises. We should not use our position as legislators to make campaign pledges, nor do I believe we should use our position as legislators to build a campaign platform.
The only way schools, public schools, will survive in Georgia is if we take the burden totally off property taxes and shift some of that burden to sales taxes.
I think it misses the mark when it comes to what we really should be doing in this state, and that is looking at the overall formula and the method in which we finance public schools.
The resolution failed to get a 2/3 majority. Senator Cagle says he was surprised by the vote.
The Democrats decided to take a caucus position, and they locked down. All the Democrats voted against the bill, and many of the Democrats violated their commitment to me, and I'm disappointed in that.
Now, Senator Cagle also tried to get this measure through last year and also failed to get a 2/3 majority. Reporting from the Capitol, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
In other news, the Senate today passed a bill banning disruptive conduct at funerals. Senator John Douglas said crude demonstrations at recent funerals around the country had made such legislation necessary.
Fred Phelps, a so-called reverend of the Westboro Baptist Church in Topeka, Kansas, and some of his family members and followers have demonstrated at funerals for slain soldiers, for Coretta Scott King, for West Virginia miners, and for AIDS victims. These people demonstrated here at the funeral of Coretta Scott King with signs saying that she was in hell with her, and there's some words here that I'm not going to use in this chamber. It's a vulgar slang for prostitution, mongering husband. They were close enough to funeral attendees so as to be able to shout at some of the children accompanying their parents into the service, both in Lithonia and in Atlanta. They've targeted soldier funerals with signs such as, "Your son is in hell. We're glad your son is dead."
You will not find a stronger advocate for the First Amendment or freedom of speech or any kind of freedom than the senator who now stands in this well. But there comes a point at which we have to, I think, look inwardly. We're going to have another measure, the hate crimes bill that we often talk about. Actually passed one out of here. We shouldn't have to do that. But because of the loss of civility, and as smart as we are, our actions still are so dumb until we have to pass legislation such as hate crimes. I think we're looking at a very similar issue here.
Senate Bill 606 passed 55-0 and goes to the House. Also passed in the Senate today, a bill making it easier for grandparents to take legal responsibility for raising their grandchildren. Senator Renee Unterman explains.
This expands the legal capacity for grandparents and great-grandparents to be able to take care of their grandchildren. And it's very much in need. This is a #1 priority from the Georgia Council on Aging. Instead of putting these kids in foster care, it enables grandparents to be able to take care of them in their own home, in their own surrounding, where they've been used to being taken care of. But the most important thing that it does is increases the power of attorney abilities for grandparents.
It addresses something that we encounter tremendously in the Columbus area and the Fort Stewart area, and that is when military families become deployed. And this power of attorney allows, that is part of this bill, allows a parent without the necessity of having to go through a court proceedings and give custody or guardianship to a parent. This power of attorney gives it the blessing so that the grandparent can step in and take over the role of parenting temporarily while the parent is deployed.
Bill sponsor Senator Renee Unterman dedicated the bill to the memory of Martha Eves. Senate Bill 420 passed 56-0 and goes to the House.
We at Lawmakers would like to take a moment to remember Martha Eves, a tireless advocate of Georgia's seniors. The Georgia Council on Aging has been promoting the contributions of seniors in our great state, and when it comes to the legislature, no one could match Martha's advocacy. This is an excerpt from a tribute video prepared by the Atlanta Regional Commission.
Once in a great while, there comes a person who engages others with such passion and force, she captures the hearts and minds of all who know her and makes our world a better place.
The legislators had a tremendous amount of respect for her. Plus, they had a tremendous amount of fear from her because she would let them know exactly what she thought.
She represented the best of what citizens can do when they get involved with government.
I mean, Martha was there saying, come on, you can do it. I do it. I'm just, you know, an ordinary citizen, and you can do it too.
She could look any senior in the face and say, I did what I could for you.
The power of one to engage others can never be underestimated. Martha Eves did it beautifully, and we are all better off because of her.
A nice and well-deserved tribute. Now it's time for our weekly wrap-up with Tom Crawford, national editor of CapitolImpact.com. I began by asking Tom about the potential impact of the immigration bill passed by the Senate yesterday.
Well, Sam Zamarripa, who is one of the first Latinos elected to the General Assembly, expressed the idea yesterday that the mere fact that the bill has passed could scare some folks into leaving and going home. because as he's put it, they're afraid they're going to get arrested tomorrow, and he pointed out the impact that this could have on several industries in Georgia, especially the agriculture business. So it's one of those things that's a winner with the voters, because people do want the General Assembly to do something about immigration, but it could have perhaps some unforeseen economic consequences.
And I was going to ask you how much of this you think is political.
Well, I would say a certain percentage of it, maybe as high as 80 or 90%, because, again, the polls show that people do want the legislature to do something about it. Maybe they're not sure what they want them to do, but they do want them to do something about it.
In the House today, a bit of a surprise, eminent domain legislation kind of coming out of nowhere. What's your take on that?
That was going to come up at some point this session, and they were reaching a deadline where they had to get something out of the House, so they went ahead and put it on the calendar at the last minute. The bill would restrict somewhat the ability of local governments to condemn property for public development or redevelopment projects. I'm not sure exactly how much of a restriction it puts on there, but again, like the immigration bill, it allows legislators to go back home and tell the voters, you know, we did something about this.
Now, part of that required a constitutional amendment, something that Republicans haven't been very successful in the Senate in getting passage. Today, for instance, and I think we've already reported on it on the program, Senator Casey Cagle introduced a proposed constitutional amendment that would allow local school districts to impose sales tax for purposes other than capital expenses, which is a change in the way that's funded. And again, this one got turned down.
That's right. The Democrats locked down on it, and they have just enough votes in the Senate to prevent a two-thirds majority, which is what you need for a constitutional amendment to pass. Now, I don't think the Democrats will keep the eminent domain constitutional amendment from passing, but when they want to, they can band together and they can keep the Republicans from getting an issue through.
And then on a political front, though, knowing that they don't have enough votes without some Democrats changing their mind to get these constitutional amendments, how political is it on the part of the Republicans to propose these in the first place?
Well, what they're doing, of course, is putting the Democrats on record as voting to oppose something which Republicans think might help them in the election this year, and perhaps it will. They also know, perhaps, that they can put a measure out there and know that it'll get voted down, and they can safely vote for it in that respect.
Tom, thanks for your insight, as always. Our guest has been Tom Crawford, National Editor of CapitalImpact.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Gerald.
And for those of you with access to the Internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Visit our website at gpb.org for more information. Click on Watch Online, then follow the instructions for watching live or looking at past Lawmakers programs in our archives. That website address again is gpb.org. Just another way we keep you apprised of what's going on here at the General Assembly. And back to legislative news. If you owe public housing authorities money, your state income tax refund may be in danger soon. Bipartisan legislation that would allow the public housing authorities to collect debts by seizing state income tax refunds is one of the many bills whose sponsors hope that they will be placed on the rules calendar before the end of crossover day on Monday. Lawmakers Katie Eubanks joins us from the Capitol with more on House Bill 429. Katie.
In Wandy, Representative Tommy Smith, sponsor of HB 429, feels as if his bill is necessary to make up for the proposed federal cuts for public housing in President Bush's 2007 budget.
What it does, it allows the public housing authorities to go to the Department of Revenue and get refunds that people would be getting back in their taxes if they have left the public housing with a delinquent bill. A lot of people leave, tears up the facility and leaves owing a lot. And the state has a procedure that a number of state agencies use to go and get tax refunds already. This just allows the Department of Public Housing to tap into that same resource.
When faced with the objection that his bill would merely take more money away from already poor people, Representative Smith countered that HB 429 has built-in measures to prevent this from happening.
I've been told that by the public housing organizations that they're going to have to begin limiting public housing for the poor people. This would only go after those who aren't paying their bills, and only after they've left the premises. If they're still there, it doesn't count, but if it's only after they have left. So the people that are being targeted are no longer in public housing anyway.
A representative from the Public Housing Authority reiterated the need to make up for federal cuts. He said the agency advocates this bill because it will not require any increase in taxes, but will instead tap into the resources the state already has on hand. House Bill 429 now awaits placement on the rules calendar. Reporting from the Capitol, I'm Katie Eubanks for Lawmakers.
The House today okayed a measure to allow disabled people to use capuchin monkeys, also known as organ grinders, to aid them with various tasks. Representative Bruce Holt explained that House Bill 695 was inspired by a woman with multiple sclerosis who could experience greater freedom if she could legally license a capuchin monkey in Georgia.
Placement of a monkey would allow them to have help with a lot of simple things like getting a drink, turning on or off the light or a fan, picking up the phone, many odds and ends. Some folks in other states have used this opportunity to return to productive life, working from home.
Bill 695 passed 160 to 1, and it moves to the Senate.
The House today agreed that unused prescription drugs should be used to provide medication to indigent patients. Representative Cecily Hill explains House Bill 1178.
This is a bill that will establish a program through which we can use unused prescription drugs that are thrown away in institutions like nursing homes, hospice. Any leftover drugs from a deceased patient can be redistributed for indigent care. In Georgia today, we have a lot of people who fall through the cracks, who make too much money for Medicaid and are not on Medicare. This will provide medications that are expensive for them at no cost.
House Bill 1178 passed without opposition. It now moves to the Senate.
Women in support of access to birth control took to these steps of the Capitol today. The rally titled Stand Up for Choice was to voice opposition to House Bill 1445. That legislation would give pharmacists the option not to dispense prescriptions they believe will cause an abortion.
We women are grown-ups. We're adults. We know how to go to a doctor. We know how to manage our health needs. And we would like, thank you very much, to be able to continue to do that without big brother government intruding into that private decision to use contraception.
Unfortunately, by taking action on House Bill 1445, legislators would actually protect pharmacists who choose to interfere with a woman's access to this vital drug. I asked those legislators, are you going to stand with the women who are raped, or are you going to stand with those pharmacists who misunderstand emergency contraceptives? We believe that your constituents, we believe that the voters in Georgia, particularly the women voters of Georgia, want you to stand with women who are raped and ensure that they have the full range of options available to them.
We want pharmacists to not impose their ideology on women, and legislators need to get behind the women of Georgia and protect them by standing for women, not as a barrier to women's access to birth control.
Opponents of the bill say they are concerned that if this legislation becomes law, an attempted ban on abortion will not be far behind.
The Georgia Campaign for Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention held a reception for its supporters last night at the Georgia Freight Depot. With more on last evening's events is Lawmakers' Lauren Brown.
Last night, GCAP, or the Georgia Campaign for Adolescent Pregnancy Prevention, held a reception for Georgia legislators. Hosted by GCAP founder and executive chair Jane Fonda, the event focused on the many achievements GCAP has made over the past 10 years.
GCAP says the Just Say No message isn't enough for Georgia's teens. Pregnancy prevention is not just a simple issue. It has taken GCAP over a decade to reduce teen births in Georgia by 1/3. GCAP executives spoke with me about why there is still more work to be done.
I think it's easy to get complacent when you hear the statistics that we've had a 27% decline, but we're still number 8th in the country. We're 5th highest nation for repeat pregnancies and teen births, so it's important to us that I think the work that we've done has kept this issue alive in a broad way.
One key thing, relationship. If young people have a relationship, a consistent, nurturing, loving relationship with a caring adult, that can make all the difference in the world. Consistency being one of the most important parts. Now, ideally, they have a parent that provides that. But unfortunately, for many complicated reasons, that's not always the case. And so part of what we try to do is wrap these young people in the love of a family.
Georgia Department of Labor Commissioner Michael Thurman also attended last night's event to support GCAP in their 2006 theme of hope, opportunity, prevention, and empowerment. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Lauren Brown.
Governor Sonny Perdue proclaimed today to be promoting Safe and Stable Families Day in Georgia. PSSF is a network of support groups that counsel parents and children while encouraging stronger family ties. Department of Human Resources Director B.J. Walker says the coalition of support groups has saved 8,000 children from abuse. She says the work to make stronger families will strengthen Georgia's future.
And First Lady Mary Perdue also promoted child development at the Capitol today. Mrs. Perdue pledged her support to Teen Work, a program that places mentally and physically challenged teenagers in state agencies for real-world working experience. Teen Work also teaches teenagers how to develop interview skills to prepare them for work after high school. One young lady says she's learned more at her summer job with the GVI than most students learn in a school year.
I can say that the most beneficial thing that I learned was if I displayed hard work and excellent morals, many more opportunities will arise for me.
The Rotary Clubs and Masonic Order pledge their support to Teen Work. The First Lady says partnerships between the state and private groups are the key to success for Georgia's teens.
The 34th Annual Firefighter Recognition Day was held out today. Governor Sonny Perdue and several legislators gave accolades to all firefighters across Georgia. Letitia Jeter has our story.
So it's important that we take the time today to honor Georgia's firefighters and thank you for your service. We appreciate once again not only what you do in the public safety arena, but we want to thank you for what you do in our communities.
You protect us. You have been a wonderful, wonderful inspiration. Don't forget that all over their state there are tons and tons of little boys and little girls that are dreaming about wearing the uniform that you wear today. Thank you for your public service. God bless you, each and every one.
John Oxendine, Georgia Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner, took the time during the celebration to explain Senate Bill 495, which will have a significant impact on firefighters and Georgians.
What 495 does is it modernizes and updates the blasting laws in the state of Georgia. It will make Georgia have the most up-to-date and progressive blasting law to help protect our citizens.
Senate Bill 495 is in response to the misuse of blasting material. One of the goals of the bill is to improve the image of the industry through increased regulation. The bill was passed with no opposing votes and goes to the House. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Letitia Jeter.
Well, lawmakers will not be seen tomorrow because the Georgia General Assembly will be in recess. We'll return with all the latest on Monday, the 30th legislative day. It's crossover day under the Gold Dome, and that's the deadline for legislation to pass out of one chamber of its origination and make it over to the other. We'll have highlights of what promises to be a very full day here on Lawmakers. That's Monday night at 7 p.m. If you missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, be sure to tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. Now stay tuned for Ask This that's coming up next here on GPB.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 29th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Wandy Lawson. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.
Tonight,